He appeared on the Voice Den previously, and thrilled to have him joining us as well for the party episode of the Voice Den happening this Saturday, November 14th. So without any further ado, I am really excited to bring on Roger and our guest co-host, Ian Utility. I did it again, Ian Utility. I did that last episode. I called him Ian Utility. He's Ian Utility.
I'm the utility. I'm useful. I'm here to go. Nickname. Roger. We're a fan.
Oh my goodness, Ian. Sorry. All right,
I'm
Roger.
Utility, man. I'm just a useful tool. That's what I am.
You're a useful tool. Okay, gotta practice. All right, but enough about Ian. This is about you, Roger. Roger, thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here.
And, thank you. I am getting a chance to talk with two of my favorite people in the industry, and so looking forward to getting a chance to chat. And I hope everyone comes on Saturday. You know, I'm looking at the screen and I see those kind of beers superimposed in the bottom, and I'm thinking, well, that's going to be Saturday, right? A lot of really interesting conversation, but kind of in a casual kind of party-ish atmosphere to celebrate your 1000th episode. So really looking forward to it.
You got it. Thanks so much for that, Roger. That's fantastic. So, Roger, I should just mention to everybody here that we are live on multiple platforms. So if anybody would like to put in any comments or questions, I can bring them up and bring them on screen. So that's an open invitation to everyone. But first of all, Roger, can I get you to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Yeah, sure. So I am a developer evangelist for Bixby. So Samsung's AI, conversational AI assistant. And so what does that mean? An evangelist, it means I go out and I talk to lots of people. I talk to developers, designers, companies, really about, hey, how can you build something interesting using voice or conversational AI? And then how can I help you build that on Bixby? And so lots of talking, building some tutorials, working with the internal team to kind of internally evangelize, hey, here's what the outside world is saying. Let me put my, put a little finger on the scale for this feature or this functionality. And I really love it because it's really a combination of, I'm a technology geek at heart, but I'm also an extrovert. So I'm that strange combination. So I get to talk and be techie at the same time.
That's fantastic. It's a perfect fit, sounds like, for you. So
yeah, no, it is. It's funny. I've been in voice for about 3 years. Did a voice startup before that. Did some voice consulting, but I worked in omni-channel technology strategy for a long time for Gap Inc. for many years before that, and did e-commerce consulting. So I had this big e-commerce background. But one of the things that I was always trying to do is I want to find the technology that helps people get something done and then gets out of the way, right? So, which is kind of the crux, right? I want you to go buy something in my store or buy something online, but I'm not trying to sell technology. I'm trying to sell our product. And one of the things that I realized when I saw voice or heard voice, maybe a better way to say it, is that, man, this is the best technology I've seen to date that lets you get something done and then get out of the way. And so magical to me that I kind of left my big corporate job to go pursue this dream of a startup, which didn't all work out, but it led me to a career in the voice industry, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Amazing. Ian, let's bring you in here. What questions, what thoughts do you have, stuff that you can share about Roger, or questions for him?
Well, Roger and I met almost 2 years ago today, because it was like November. I did the event called The Future of Voice at DocuSign's headquarters. And Roger was there. It was before you were at Samsung Bixby.
I was doing consulting then.
That's right. You're doing consulting. And I remember that you really stood out to me amongst the rest of the attendees. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I really want to be that guy's friend. I hope he stays in the voice industry. He really knows how to articulate things. And I remember like feeling a very positive things about you in our conversation. And then when we ran into each other again, it was either at one of Bradley's events or one of Pete's events. By that time, you're with Samsung Bixby. I think so. One thing I don't know if I've heard you talk much about is the positive impact that was made for you when you went from being a consultant to having the brand and the team and maybe even more specifically, Adam Chira as a person, as a leader, kind of behind you, right? You got to step up onto this platform, the Samsung platform, right? The Adam's new thing platform, right? With all these resources. And it's not just the brand, like Bixby has been loved by its users. The people that really use Bixby well, whether they're developers or end users, they love it. So this is where I'd like to land on the question after a little context of our relationship. Can you talk a bit about the positive impact that came to you from working with Adam, and then also working at a huge company like Samsung? Would you mind just talking to those two things? Like, what's it like? How was it positive working with Adam, and how has it been positive working for that large corporation?
So how's it positive working for Adam is the easiest question in the world to answer, because really Adam's the reason I joined Samsung, right? I met Adam at a hackathon. Samsung was doing a hackathon, and I met this guy, and I'd heard of him, and I was all intimidated, right? And this guru, and I met him. He's like, "Hey, how's it going? My name's Adam." Super down to earth. And what I realized, and then working with Adam, is he's the smartest guy in the room pretty much always. And, I always say we're all driving 55, 65, and he's driving 100. But he's super humble about it. And he just sees and puts together things. And then he has this quiet leadership style where he gets people to see his vision and execute on his vision. So he paints this amazing picture. But not beyond painting that picture, because I think a lot of people can paint these amazing pictures. He's a really great leader, actually. Around, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you encourage this? Oh, this is challenging. Let's go here. Let's make incremental steps along that path to my vision. And that's the thing that I don't think a lot of people know about Adam, is I think you see his visionary thought leadership, but you don't see his visionary people leadership. And to my mind, that is the biggest thing, amazing thing about working with Adam, is working with this incredible genius who's very down to earth and easy to talk to and excites you. And as far as working for the big company, yeah, I mean, it's you get to influence big things, right? I mean, one of the things that I was like, Samsung sells 500 million devices a year. Wow. We're going to put a voice assistant in all those, and I get to be part of that ecosystem and try to influence what happens. That's going to change the experiences of hundreds of millions, even maybe more people who use these devices. What a grand opportunity to insert yourself and be early in it too. It's often been said you want to be early in a company. Startup best to be early because you can influence so many things. Well, Viv Labs at Samsung Acquired is still relatively small, so and to this day is, and so I get a lot of chance to influence things that impact so many things that are being done, and that's just super exciting for me.
That's fantastic. It's amazing. Along those lines then, of being able to influence things and working with the company, if you kind of think about the voice industry as a whole, what do you feel are some of the biggest issues right now facing the voice industry? And perhaps, maybe you have some ideas of some solutions, perhaps, I don't know. But what would you think are the biggest issues facing the voice industry?
Yeah. So, and I'll do it's easier to talk about the problems than the solutions. But yeah, so the first problem I always think, so one, I think the financial model. I mean, I think if I'm an independent developer, I can make money through, in skill, in action, soon in capsule purchasing, but that's kind of my only way to do it. And I think we need to unlock that and think of more creative ways for independent developers to make money. And I'll make a prediction here. I think it's going to have something to do with advertising, because I think advertising, much as I, shirk to think about it, it was the biggest unlock to the mobile industry around actually making a lot of things financially viable. And I think we need to figure that out in voice. If I'm a company financially, when I think about a lot of voices being used in marketing, and kind of the holy grail of marketing is being able to attribute, hey, here were the 12 customer touch points before they actually made a purchase. How do I actually know that they use my voice experience along the way? And how do I kind of tag that or know that that's, I can attribute part of this purchase to that voice experience interaction? There's a grand opportunity. I have no idea how to do it, but someone figures that out, that is going to be worth a lot of money to this industry. So financially, figuring that out. I'll also say, and I think this is just something that we got to, is diversity. So I think we in the tech industry is just infamous for a lack of diversity, unfortunately, right? Bunch of white males building things, right? And I'm encouraged by the voice industry. We're still relatively young, groups like Women in Voice, right? So, we absolutely should have gender equality in everyone building or designing or any part of the voice ecosystem. So let's, make sure that happens and empower women to be as powerful or more powerful than men in the voice world. I think that's okay right now. I do worry about racial diversity. I don't think there's nearly enough Black or Latinas who are actually building voice experiences. I think we got to be super diligent about it. I don't want to fall into the problems that the rest of the tech industry has had. We're young enough in the industry to kind of tackle this. I don't know the solution there, but I do know that talking about it and encouraging diversity is at least the beginning of a solution. And then, sorry, lots to say in this.
That's great. No, I love hearing you speak
but
about this.
Last thing is, I'm just going to call this, and I'm going to point the fingers at all of us. I'm going to call it a lack of kind of creativity in what we've built. So we can do timers, we can do music, right? We play simple games, we do some maybe home automation, and that's about it. Even those of us who are most deeply steeped in the industry, you kind of ask, well, what do you use voice for? Probably one of those 3 or 4, and then there's not a lot else. And so I think we're kind of stuck there. And I think we need to think and be more creative, or think about where you see a lot of friction. I can't, every time I see, and we're in the middle of doing a house remodeling, so I'm looking at appliances, right? And there's like 87 buttons there, man. I'm like, they're even more complicated. I'm like, that screams for a voice interface, right? Instead of, it is not human to press 20 buttons to get something done. It's human to ask something to be done. I've said it before, I would love apps and mobile. I want a voice-enabled Excel. It's what I want, because I can't figure out half the things you can do with Excel, but I can explain them. I just think, those are kind of very practical things, but I also think on the entertainment side, on gaming, etc., we need to be more creative, because we're stuck. I believe we're stuck in a little bit of a rut. I see a lot of Me Too things there. So we need to bust through that. I'm confident it's going to happen, but it's going to happen if voice is going to kind of grow and expand.
Yeah, you need that one big breakthrough app skill, capsule, whatever you want, I think, to really kind of showcase to the world what is possible.
Yeah. I mean, people talk about the Angry Birds of voice. Maybe it's that, or maybe it's just a whole new way of interacting where there's a lot of friction doing it the way we currently do it. And voice takes away a bunch of that friction. And then you build a bunch of cool creative experiences on top of that idea. So whether it's one app or one kind of conceptual idea where voice is the very best user experience is the question I have. But I'm looking forward to that happening. It's going to happen, but we got to work hard to make it happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ian, let's get you in here.
So I really like the way this conversation is going. I'm going to give a little context to my question, but where I'm going to land on the question, Roger, just to give you a little time to think about it, is when you talk about diversity, I want to talk about the human element of how do we increase diversity, at least amongst evangelists, since that's a major role that you play. But let me give a little context to the question. So I asked you about Adam Chire earlier and Samsung, and it was interesting. You recognize that Adam's the smartest guy in the room, which he probably wouldn't agree with you, because I find Adam to be very humble in response. So Adam's not the type of guy to be like, that's right, I'm the smartest guy in the room. He'd be like, oh, come on. But you talked about what a great innovator he is, right? Like all the things that he brought to the table. But what you really said that really stood out to me was the humanity of Adam. And that Adam was maybe best at being an innovator amongst people. And that what you gained the most was not working on Adam's newest invention, Samsung Bixby, but really working on being a part of how he manages people. Okay, so that's a little context for what I recognized in your answer. My answer now, based on your statement of diversity and the need for diversity, and you recognize that there's a lot, we've made some big strides in like women in voice, not enough, but we've made some big strides, but maybe there's even more room for improvement with more ethnicities, right? Like how many people are African-American or are Indian or are Latino that are really have a strong voice, that are like the leaders of the industry. So all that coming back to you being a senior developer evangelist, I have found that in the voice tech industry, the evangelist roles, those that are the promoters of the products and services, it's not just one evangelist. There's a Alexa auto evangelist, and there's the evangelist for all these different things. There's a developer side. How might you, if Samsung or even Amazon or Google or Apple's team came to you and said, hey, listen, we want to like diversify and we want to have more evangelists to cover more ground. And they say, and they ask you like, what would you think about having like an urban evangelist? What would you think about having an evangelist for different languages or different tribes? Can you talk a bit about if one of the companies, Samsung, obviously the most obvious for you, comes to you and says, hey, we're concerned about diversity, you're concerned about diversity. We think there's options and opportunities to diversify the evangelist role inside of our organization. Roger, can you give us some advice on the type of evangelist roles that we could easily make space to where the right person for that role would be a diverse person anyways? I think you know where I'm going. I just want you to speak to that a bit about how there can be an immediate solution to this issue that we all recognize just in your line of work, just right there. So anyway, I thought that'd be an interesting thing for people to listen to you talk about.
That's a great question. What immediately strikes me, and you were mentioning it when you're talking about it, is you talked about an urban evangelist or an evangelist. We all talk about evangelists. They're typically broken up by technology, right? You focus on this technology or that technology. But, you know, if my job really is a bunch of marketing, which it really is, right? And marketing to developers and designers there, then maybe there is an urban evangelist. Maybe there's a Latin American evangelist. I don't know how to break all these things up and that. But stop thinking about breaking things up by technology and think about breaking up by the people you want to go out and reach. And who's the best voice to go out and reach those people? I think that would be the first thing I would think of. The other thing is being a great evangelist or doing well at this role, I think is really about being happy to talk and communicate people and really enjoying being on things like this, which I love this. And sometimes in this industry, people are like, well, you got to have the deep technical background and blah, 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 BS, right? Okay. All right. I have a degree in psychology, by the way. So I do not have a CS degree, right? But think about people who are great communicators. I think they can learn the tech, but learning to be a great communicator and wanting to go out in front of being excited to get up on stage in front of a bunch of people is something that, yes, you can learn to do, but sometimes it's kind of innate in you. So go find those people, right? And then teach them the tech. So start with the people. I guess what I'm saying, start with the people first. Start with the groups you want to find. Go find them, hire for that. And then find people that are great people. And they can learn the technology afterwards. I honestly think that's the easy part.
And
so
I was gonna say, and check this out. Jenny, who's watching, says, love the idea of focusing on needs of people rather than tech. So that's right along with what you're saying there, Roger. I think that's fantastic. Go ahead, Ian. I just want to be respectful of Roger's time here, just to finish up here. Sure.
So it's just a follow-up to this question to see if we can get a little bit more direction for people that are watching us live or more likely watching the archive in 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days from now. So let me land here. If somebody says to themselves, like, I'll raise my hand. Like, I'd be totally down to be an urban evangelist for any of these voice devices, or I'd be completely open to be an evangelist to, this people group or this industry, etc. I think it's unrealistic to imagine that somebody that raises their hand is going to get a job at Samsung or Amazon or Apple just because they're willing. I think there has to be entry points. And so, like, a couple entry points I can think of right off the bat, just for those that are watching, like, I'm looking at you, I'm thinking about you right now. If you want to be a diverse evangelist in the voice tech industry, then show the world what you can do for women in voice. Show the world what you can do for the Voicefluencer Show. Show the world what you can do for the Voice Den. Show the world what you can do for Alexa in Canada, for Voice in Canada, for Voice of Health, right? You understand that Teri has put so much energy into creating all this content. So if you think you have an ability to evangelize voice content, use some of Teri's content. So Roger, this is the question for you. What are some entry points in your mind that people can kind of show their chops around being a diverse evangelist for things inside of the Samsung Bixby ecosystem? Like, where is a blog or a Twitter handle? Where's the place or places that people could go and they could say, I'm going to show Samsung how I can move the needle. I'm going to show Amazon or Google how I can get the world's attention, this specific type of people. And I just thought it might be nice for you to share, like, guys, honestly, if you want to show the world what you're capable of and as an evangelist, like, go make a bunch of noise about these things for Samsung Bixby. And I think this is also a good final question for me, in that it lets you talk a bit about things that people should be checking out around, what Samsung's doing. So anyway, that's my final question.
Sure. So I love you saying, go make a bunch of noise, because that's actually my biggest advice. That's so simple, but go make a bunch of noise. So get on Twitter, right? So I'd say the voice industry's kind of de facto social media thing is largely Twitter. Some in LinkedIn, but I think Twitter is probably the most where you see a lot. Go get there and explain what you're doing, and share it, and tag the right people and do it. Post COVID, right? Go out in the community. I think it's look. I used to be terrified to actually go on stage or talk to a group of more than like 5 people, believe it or not. Now I really love it. And that's because I force myself to do it. So go force yourself, go do it, get on stage, go talk to a lot of people. I don't care if your knees are shaking. I remember when my knees used to shake. And go do it. And I think it's an interesting, because it tells you if you start, because even though my knees used to shake, I used to be energized afterwards. I'm like, I like doing this, but I'm not comfortable doing it. So a little bit, that's it, make yourself uncomfortable. So I'd say go do things on social media, go build, we build experiences, apps, skills, capsules, there's lots of names for them. Go build something really cool and interesting and innovative. I just said at the beginning, one of the problems in the voice industry is I think we're too narrow in what we're building. Go build something wacky and crazy and things that, and in some sense, build the wackiest, craziest things. Look, I live in the heart of Silicon Valley, and one of the reasons Silicon Valley is a special place for entrepreneurs is nobody thinks any idea is wacky. There might be some crazy ideas, but out of some of the crazy ideas came some of the most successful companies in the world. So I'd say I'd love to see people build. When I notice something and I see something new coming in, and I'm like, wow, I had never even thought that you could build a voice app for that or conversational AI around that. That's what I really love. So get your crazy on, go build something wild, go talk about what you built, and you're going to get noticed.
That's great. Great advice. Great advice, Roger. Boy, we're running out of time, and there's so much more I wanted to talk with you about. One thing I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about, and I thank you for having me on your podcast, but you've got an amazing podcast, and I wonder if you could just tell the viewers, the listeners, a little bit about your podcast. I think it's a great resource.
Yeah, so started it at the beginning of this year, Bixby Developers Chat, and I have they're usually about 45-minute to an hour-long conversations And really, I always say it's a couple people sitting down, having a conversation about voice. Hopefully my guest is doing a lot more talking than I am as the host, although I'm loquacious, so I have to watch that. But, sitting down, talking about voice, what you're seeing, what you like, how did you get started, where you see the future going. What I really love talking about is how did you get into it? Right? Because people have these crazy, I had this site over the weekend. I built something, I threw it up on the Alexa store and forgot about it. And all of a sudden a bunch of people are using it. That's one of my favorite stories that happens. Right. Or, I just started playing with things and I thought, I got my Alexa or my Google or my Bixby and it was too hard to do something. So I built my own thing for my own use and all of a sudden people liked it. So I really like talking about how you got involved in industry, because I think that's where you get that really kind of diverse set of viewpoints and ideas and thoughts and thinking. And okay, I'm an evangelist, so I want more people in this industry. So I do hope that people listen to that and they're like, hey, that sounds like me, or I could do that. Let me go build something. People ask, well, what should I build? I'm like, I don't know, man. Go build it.
Just figure it out. Just to be creative.
Just go figure it out and build it. And as I always say, look, at a minimum, you're going to have one very passionate fan about anything you build. And, I built a lot of stuff that's kind of embarrassing. And if you think a lot smaller fraction of things that I'm proud of, but that's okay, because you just got to go build it and do it. And so that's I'm getting a little off topic, but my podcast is all about talking to people in voice who've made some noise in voice. And I'd love to hear about how they made their noise and what new noise they're going to make.
That's great. We've kind of come full circle here with that. That's fantastic. All right, Roger. Well, excuse me. Really excited to have you on the Voice Den, the party episode coming up. As you know, as listeners will know, it's an opportunity for people to ask questions. So I'll finish off with this last question, and that's, what would you like people to ask you about? What's your sweet spot that you really would love to talk about?
I like talking about my journey with technology. Because I do not have an educational background in technology. I planned on being a lawyer of all things. How did I get involved in technology, and where did my career kind of evolve? And I found what I was good at or bad at and things, and kind of bounced around and found a path that's really successful and a happy place for me. So that's something I get passionate about talking about, because I feel there's a lot of people who I hear these things. You must have a computer science degree. Bullshit. Right. No, you don't. As a matter of fact, some of the most interesting technology things I've seen built have been people who had a background in art or history or English or that. And that's nothing against those who have computer science degrees, because they built amazing things too. But I think you can bounce around, and don't be afraid to reinvent yourself along the way. I've done that a couple times, and I figure I'll have to do that a couple more times before I hang up the spurs, so to speak. So
great advice. No, that's awesome. Roger, where can people go to connect with you, learn more about what you're doing, what Samsung is doing, all of the good resources? What would you suggest?
Yeah, so myself personally, Twitter at Roger Kibbe, ROGER, KIBBE. You can connect. And then I think Twitter is great. Bixby Developers at Bixby Developers. Go check out my podcast, Bixby Developers Chat. Just find it at any of the players there. And I'd say those are the two best places, and kind of and don't be afraid to reach out. I love getting questions, right? DM me on Twitter or ask me something and I'll reach out. And if you want it, we have some private Slack channels that we invite people who are interested. So if you're interested in doing that, happy to add you and kind of build the community. So don't be shy, reach out, say hello. I like to say hello.
Awesome. Well, again, Roger, thank you so much for spending some of your time with us here on the Voicefluencer Show. Really appreciate your insights. I really encourage everybody to go and check out all those resources that Roger talked about. And of course, this Saturday, 5 p.m. Pacific, the Voice Den, party celebrating 1,000 flash briefings with all kinds of surprises, prizes, and just a really, really good time. So thank you, Ian, for co-hosting. Thank you, Roger, for spending your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Teri. Thanks, Ian
Yes,
Utility.
okay.